Highlights for Children is a unique company. We believe that we were created and that we exist for the children and families we serve. So fundamentally, we think from the beginning and to today, we're guided by a mission of helping children become their best selves. So in our work with Storyforge, we realized we should not just talk about ourselves, but talk about what we're doing in the world. Our vision is that if we're successful as a company, we're helping to build a more optimistic and empathetic world where all children can become their best selves. So it's a clarifying sort of exclusive laser focus on what are we doing for kids and how do we all come together as a community at work to benefit children as much as we possibly can. Oh, and we do magazines too. Some people know that.
There are a lot of organizations that say they're mission driven. And I think those are always well-intended statements when people say we have a mission and we believe it. And I do believe that the intention is there. Highlights, my experience of highlights is we say it, it's our intention, and we live it inside and outside in the world.
You know, what's so interesting is that in both of your descriptions of highlights, one of the things that would probably be pulled out of your story by just about anybody else walking down the street is how long you've been in business. And that used to be kind of the major headline, I think, of the way you would talk about highlights. Can you maybe speak for a minute about both that legacy, why it's important, and why that's not the headline that you lead with anymore?
So we're 78, But I do think one of the things we learned is if you lead with a story about history or a story about us, whoever you're talking to, whether it's an employee today, a prospective employee, a customer, somebody on the street, you haven't done the work of saying, well, why should they care? Because our history is great. I love it. Like I've participated in writing books on it. Like, I love our history, but who cares? My great-grandparents started the company. I could tell you a lot about the history. I've been here for 20 years. The history is only interesting if you care about the today and the tomorrow. And the today and tomorrow are way more interesting than the history. We don't view our meaningful story as a PR effort. We don't view it as a marketing effort. As Julie said, we don't view it as a product effort. It has to really become the DNA of who we are and how we behave.
There's so much value in us being able to clearly articulate who we are and how we want to be in the world when it comes to things like sourcing and recruiting the employees that we would like to invite into our community. We're getting better at building that story into an employee's first 100 days. You know, what is it that, what have I said yes to? I know what I was contemplating as I was interviewing, but now what have I said yes to? And how do I become a part of a community that this is who we are and how we want to be in the world?
What would you tell the Kent pre-Storyforge about what the outcomes or results are going to be of the work today?
Don't underestimate the power of telling the story in a way that centers the listener at affecting the way you and they think. I think what we learned from Storyforge is if you can tell a compelling story about why, about what we're doing in the world, why we exist, what we're about in terms of our impact on the world, then there's a chance, not a certainty, but a chance that you create in that audience some interest in learning more. But maybe they want to learn about products, or maybe they want to learn about philosophy. But far better to tell a story, and this we learned from Storyforge, tell a story that's compelling and centers the listener and the external world, and then see where the conversation goes. So I think I would also say don't underestimate the power of having clarity of what you believe as you're going through change, as a way to bring people into that change, to create clarity and empower people to drive the change in an aligned sort of fashion. So I think in the pre-Storyforge days, I would have probably put more power on, like, what are the ideas? Like, is this process going to make our ideas better? And in fact, like, I would say, hey, keep in mind, you're both going to make the ideas better, and you're going to make the way that these ideas are deployed and used and are effective in people's hearts and mind better. So it's, and I'm not saying we felt like we had all the ideas. Like, we're a publishing company. We wrote down every value we ever had. In fact, I think you looked at it, Haley, and you said, oh my gosh, there's so much content here. And I said, yeah, see if you can add any value to that. Like, here's 500 pages or whatever we handed you. But it really wasn't about adding. It was about subtracting. It was about synthesizing. It was about extracting. It was about shifting the frame of reference by 45 degrees. And I think I would say to my earlier self, don't underestimate the potential power of that shift of frame of reference if you and others are willing to really buy in. This is not something that should live in your PR department, your marketing department. It's got to live in your human department, like all of the humans.
So what I've noticed about how we use the story in the context of our climate and our culture, it's everything from a primary filter of how we're recruiting for candidates to join the organization. It's a part of a filter. And when I say a filter, it could be everything from something really formal to simply a filter for thinking, right? Is being grounded in the story also when we're interviewing candidates and making decisions to invite people into the community, to how we're onboarding them, to how we're communicating on an ongoing basis. In my field, it's not uncommon for things to become really engineered and highly process oriented. And that has its time and that has its place. What I appreciate about this work from an outcome standpoint is the simplicity and the authenticity of the story. Because my experience is the more authentic the story it is, the easier it is for people to find themselves in the story. And that's what I need internally. And I know that's what, we aspire to externally in the world. I want people to hear the story and be able to find themselves and all the differences that they bring to the story. And I think that's one of the most powerful benefits of our story and the work that you've helped us do.
We are asking people to give us a large fraction of their awake time. And I feel like we have an obligation and an opportunity to try to make that time fulfilling for them. Like our time on the planet is not that long. So how do we create a sense where they have a feeling of belonging, where we have inclusiveness, where they get an emotional benefit from what we're trying to do? We really want to select people who want to be part of this vision and have that the positive energy of being part of that vision gives them more resilience, gives them more emotional satisfaction when we're at the end of a week or at the end of a tough day. Because it can be hard, but when we win, we're not just celebrating dollars. Don't think it's marketing. Don't think it's PR, right? If you want to do this process, engage to show up and really go deep or think about it. Be prepared for the potential impact. If somebody is telling you you have to do this, like, resist, like, get your own, make sure you have your own motivation. I think drop your arrogance at the door. Like, if you're not on a human learning journey, you won't get as much out of whatever you're doing. But I think particularly this work, you have to put yourself in a mindset where you're open to learning and growth and progress and input and different perspectives. And that is still a journey we're on.